Join us as we dive into the mindset, strategies, and practices that can help you make a positive impact on your business and the world around you. You're listening to Getting It Wrong to Get It Right. Are you struggling to grow your business? Book a free business growth consultation with Joe today. In this consultation, you'll receive professional advice, step-by-step guidance that will help you achieve success, best practices and tips for improving profits. Clicking on the link in the description or contacting us directly.
Rozana, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Joe.
Rozana, we have spoken for probably maybe about 6-7 months, and you know that I'm fascinated about leadership, and you have wrote a book on leadership as well, which you spent the last couple of years interviewing a lot of people and then putting all this together in an amazing book. I want to ask you a question. Why leadership? Why are you so fascinated about it? And then the second part of this question is, what types of leadership do you feel that there is out there as well?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Joe, for having me on your show. It's a real privilege and an honor. And I think it's a very interesting topic, leadership. What fascinated me towards this topic was really my master's degree at Queen's University, when I finished my dissertation on quality management. And most of the time it was processes and quality improvement, etc. But I came across these quality award companies who were applying for quality awards, such as the EFQM, the European Foundation for Quality Management, etc., or even the BQF, the British Quality Foundation. And I found this fascinating paragraph which says, we want to assess your organization on how you empower your employees. And I thought, this is really fascinating because I love working with people. I love to improve people's quality of life. So before I did opened my company, RHM Leadership, my company was called RHM Training, where I used to train people to have a better quality of life. So in the better quality of life, I became very attracted to the idea of how people can improve their lives. So it became more than just, quality of life, like having a nice desk, a good environment, the water cooler conversations, and all the other things that organizations do for people's well-being. But when I talk to people, as you said, I've interviewed leaders, etc. And the good thing is I've also interviewed people in non-management. So they're not leaders, but they are administrators, people who do inventory. They're in non-management areas. And they were saying, this is great, all the things people are doing, like the desk and all that, but it's still not giving them a feeling of well-being inside. So I thought, well, there's something going on psychologically as well. Because of my psychology background in business studies, I was thinking, this is an area I want to really study and do my doctorate degree. So after my master's, I applied to do this. And then, of course, the thing was, prepare your thesis, your hypothesis. What are you going to explore? So I thought, I'm going to explore employee empowerment. I'm going to investigate this area. How do people feel about this word empowerment, which has different meanings in different scenarios? And why are people still feeling low and depressed and job burnout, in spite of the organization taking such measures as improving their sitting environment, the room, the temperature, and everything about their surroundings? Because we thought at one point research showed that the environment is very important where people work. But now we know with hybrid and remote working, the environment of the office work is not that important. People want to work from home, but of course, there's another story there. But to go back to your question, about why leadership. So I thought the empowerment cannot happen. I mean, after doing the literature review, it was like it needs to be happening coming from senior management. It really needs to be top down and bottom up approach. And this just wasn't happening in organizations. So I was fascinated towards this. And I was fascinated to the human side of leadership. It's two ways. It's the human side of leaders and it's the human side of people who work in the organization. So we're trying to touch hearts on both ways. So it's not like only leaders need the human side, or most research Most research are surrounded, people's well-being, as I said. So the human side of the people side. But I thought I would touch upon both because both sides have hearts, leaders have hearts, people have hearts. So no point in just looking after one side of the heart. I think my approach was we need to look at both sides of the heart. So the leadership hearts and the people heart. And that's why I chose leadership.
And what did you find?
Well, this is what I found. And again, it's so interesting because I worked as a management consultant for a company for a while, and they were doing ISO standard quality improvement. So it was just, standardization, process improvement, which is important. It's really important how your processes work, how the quality improvement works. But I think the heart was getting lost in all of that. It was very machine. We talk about AI and machine problems now, but believe me, even before AI, we had this machinization of work improvement, the conveyor belt, get rid of the
box ticking.
Yes, box ticking, exactly. I mean, all the quality awards was sending the organization's documents, and the leader or who was the project manager of the quality award was just ticking boxes. Do we do this? Yes, yes, yes. No, no, no. But where was the heart in it? Where's the people side of things? Do you sit down and ask people, but what do you feel about empowerment? What do you feel about taking a decision? What do you feel if the conveyor belt stops and you have to take a decision? You have to march forward and get the idea of how to improve this, how to, get rid of this problem. How do you do that if you're not capable of taking decisions? How do you do that if you're not self-confident? Yes, I can override this and I can still stand my point and look up to the leader and say, oh, my manager, yes, I had to do that because this was for the good of the company. Can you stand up and say that why you stopped that conveyor belt at that time? Because you thought there was something wrong with the quality? And most people would say, no, we can't. Because you know why? 4 words, we are afraid, the fear, FEAR, the fear of just even doing something that would improve the organization. For example, if you went to A&E, if you were sick, and the doctor said, I know why you're sick, but I'm afraid of doing something, I'm afraid of putting a bandage, a plaster on you. What's the point in you being a doctor then? So if you are a quality manager, if you are responsible for that, you should be able to say, yes, this now needs a bandage or a plaster. And I'm not afraid to look up to my manager and say, I have to stop the conveyor belt. But it just wasn't happening because people were afraid.
But do you know the one thing that which crops up all the time when we hear the word leadership? People have a different interpretation of what leadership is. Like some people will see leadership as, political, because we get to see these people in front of us on TV and people think a good leader runs a country. And then other people will see leadership as someone who runs a company, the likes of you'd have, just we're talking about Apple there. So, Apple has great leadership and then you have Amazon's great leadership as well. So leadership can be a mother in a household. Leadership can be a father. Leadership can be a teacher. So all these are very important. And can someone be a born leader, or is someone trained to be a great leader?
Yeah, I mean, that's a classic question. I mean, I remember when I was lecturing at Queen's University in Belfast, and I had to prepare questions for my graduates. And this is a classic question. Every time it says, write an essay on are leaders born leaders, as you said, or can leaders be trained? This classic question, it's good to talk about it, but I think when we are born, we don't know what gifts we are carrying. That's the problem. So we don't know. Are we born? Are we gifted as a leader? And I think like anything else, if you have a motivation to be a leader, it is a learned thing. In other words, if you ask me, everyone can be a leader, as you said, a mother, parent, a teacher. But my question is, as in you also raise the political leader. And this is the thing, this is the exciting thing I've found, is that, when we talk about leadership, we're looking at the media all the time. And we think leaders need to be something like the political leaders that we see around. And that's where deconstructs, absolutely smashes the corporate leadership model or the ideas of being a corporate leader. And because we see media, we think, yeah, and that's why leaders try to, look at
Emulate.
this as corporate leaders and then try to have some characteristics as corporate leader. And then they talk about power, this, and other thing. So the answer to that question is, what kind of a leader do you want to be? In what capacity? Do you want to be a leader who is a mother? Do you want to be a leader who is in the teaching profession, the teacher? Do you want to be a leader in the corporate world? And believe me, even being a leader in the non-profit organization has some kind of different traits. So we need to understand which sector or where am I the leader? You can be leader in a corporate as well as a leader in your home. It doesn't stop you, but you've got to understand, and now I'm going to have to change a little bit of my style, the way I talk to people, etc. So I think the thing about it is it's your role, your responsibility, your commitment to what you're doing in the corporate setting or the parenthood setting or the homeowner setting, and I think that's where you can say, right, I need to do A, B, C, D to be the best version of myself in the leadership capacity that I'm in. So because we're talking about corporate leadership, because my research and studies have been in the corporate world, I think that's where the biggest problem lies is we look in the corporate world leadership as the political leader, which doesn't work, because in the corporate world, you need to understand that leadership qualities need to be that little bit different. You need to act not like the way the political leaders are, whether for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, but it's not, you're not running a country, in other words.
Yeah, look, would you agree or disagree that leadership comes, wisdom comes with leadership and experience helps leadership? So the longer that you're in the game and the more that you're actually able to observe and make better decisions because of your own past history from trial and error, makes a better leader.
Yes, I mean, obviously experience count as well, but if you haven't had good experience as a leader, you tend to hang on to those role models that you have seen in the past, which may not have had a good influence on you. So it's like that same thing, we learn from role models, we learn from what we see, first of all, and then we can apply our own intelligence and say, no, what I've learned, what I've seen, it really doesn't work. But that intelligence comes after you have become self-aware of two questions. Why am I a leader? What am I doing here? Am I for the benefit of people? If you put people first, if you put in your heart, whichever sector you're working as a leader, you will see your whole perspective of being a leader changes. Because when I put these two questions in front of leaders, most of the leaders do think about it. And most of the time, I have been able to, thank goodness, bring them to a different perspective. And that's all you can do as a facilitator, as a coach, which I am as a leadership coach, or as an educator or seminar speaker. You want to be able to put down some things on the table that people can look at it and change their perspective, because what they're doing is they're just not doing it right. And to have your main topic, that you have this wonderful podcast title, what have you done wrong to get it right? And I think this gives an opportunity to leaders to look at what have they done wrong. Now they can get it right because they've got different perspectives on the table. Previously, they were just working on the one perspective, on the one track. They didn't even know that other perspectives exist, that other tracks exist, that they can change. And it was like, once you're an authoritative leader, you just can't change because people will see that as a weakness. And I think that's what I bring to the table. I bring opportunities to change. And then people can see, well, oh, really? I can do that? Yes, you can do that. You can think of your people. It's not a wrong thing.
Rozana, it's a subject that fascinates me, especially conscious leadership. And as you know, that I've interviewed over 300 people,
Yes,
experts in
marvelous.
conscious leadership. And probably, I'm just calculating the other day, I've probably interviewed over 1,000 people
Wow,
on
wonderful.
many different aspects of life and business. And as I go along this road of leadership, the tools change, and probably because I start to become more aware. And some of the things that I now believe which makes great leaderships, there's certain key elements. And the key elements that I'm seeing in 2024 are as follows: compassion, listening, awareness, communication, decision making, and being of service. And they're the 6 that I was toying with. And then I realized it's also about someone holding their values and holding those values. And, it's very important to have a set of values that represent you as a person. But as I'm going through this, there's one more, which I believe is the trump of all these. And it's the one thing that a person has to walk through to actually become a good person and a great leader. Do you know what that is?
No, I'm really excited to hear it.
Shame.
Right, okay.
Facing your shame and actually going back to, forgiving the past is what I'd like
Yeah,
to say. It's forgiving the
yeah.
past. It's about the shame, the envy, and the resentment that gives you that shrug on your shoulders to go, oh, and being able to actually walk through them. Because when you walk through all them and clear them, you become more aware, which you said, which is so right. It's self-aware. You then start to have more compassion for people. You then start to be able to listen. Your communication improves because it's not about me, myself, and I anymore. Helps you with your decision making, which in turn gives you the classic, the best, I am of service.
Yes, you've put that down so nicely, Joe. I appreciate that. And you will see one of my sayings, it's somewhere within my articles or on my website or somewhere anyone interested can see that the awareness is so important. And I
Yeah.
call that without awareness, you cannot take the proper action. You cannot be the compassionate person that you're talking about. And you cannot appreciate people because it's how can you, if someone says, how many times in our lives have we heard or we have said ourselves, oh, I didn't know that. What does that mean? That you were just not aware of it. And then the classic example that I always say to people is the smoking campaign. People used to smoke inside houses, inside restaurants, anywhere, public places. It was the normal thing at one time, wasn't it? I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or something like that. And it was the norm. And how did we get rid of that habit, forced habit or whatever, that people are not allowed to smoke in public places? You won't go to a restaurant and see people smoking anymore. You won't just have that anymore. How did it happen? It was just through raising awareness of campaign after campaign after campaign. If you study the history of how the smoking campaign happened, it didn't happen overnight. Overnight, people didn't say, I think I'll stop smoking in public places now. It took a lot of pursuing, a lot of nudging, a lot of raising awareness of campaign, of bringing in the health side of things, of bringing in the smoke-free environment, bringing in the good side of things. And it was sheer awareness. And so that's what I say. If you're not aware, and now we're aware, and even a smoker is aware, and they know that they're not going to smoke in public places. They have designated areas. Fair enough. If you want to, you can go there. But this thing happened through raising awareness. And I think if people are not aware, they cannot be kind, they cannot appreciate, they cannot do all the things that, you so very nicely pointed out, the compassion, the kindness, the awareness, the being of service. If we don't allow this awareness to come into leadership, like my job, how do I serve people's pain points is I bring these things, opportunities to the table and raise awareness that way, because you can't raise awareness with a stick running around and say, you have to do this, you have to do this. So it's this gentle bringing the opportunities and the platforms for different things on the table. And then when people look at that, they say, I didn't know that. I didn't know actually that you can talk nicely to people and people don't see that as a weakness. A lot of leaders have said that. The reason I don't talk nicely to people because people might take that as a weakness and then come in with greater demands, salary increase, there's that and the other thing. So leaders are also afraid of kind of being nice. But now, if you bring it to the table, if you raise awareness that leadership, it's all right to be this, then they can say, yeah, okay, some people will change. That you bring that tide, and some people will change with that tide.
It's going back just when you talk about the smoking ban. I'm from a generation where when I was younger, you used to make your parents ashtrays for their birthday or Christmas.
My goodness. Imagine that. So is that huge change? That is, people don't realize that, what a radical change that is.
Another thing with leadership, we've talked about the soft approach, all these love, the compassion and service and awareness. What about the leadership when they have to make that hard decision? And you could have someone who is a great leader, but they're fearful of making a hard decision, letting someone go, or taking a company down a different direction. How do you walk them through this sort of process to know that they're doing the right thing and to give them the courage to be able to do it as well?
Yeah. And that's such an essential quality for leaders to have, taking those hard decisions. Because when I'm talking about the people skills, I know I'm talking about the heart. And it's only recently, actually, for me, it's also someone opened that opportunity for me to say, yes, you can talk about the human side of leadership. Because I was also a little bit apprehensive. Can I walk into a corporate boardroom and can I talk about leadership and people and human side and the heart? This was a big challenge for me. How do I walk into a boardroom with all this, senior management? They're wearing suits and tie and so serious, and in comes a girl or a woman and standing at the top of their boardroom table and telling them, oh, leadership is about the human side of leadership. It's about the people side of leadership. It's about looking at your heart and people's hearts. But I took the courage, and the courage was, now that people are aware of these things, like you talked about those characteristics of compassion, kindness with a leader, these things would not have been on the table even before COVID. Like we're talking about 5-6 years ago, if you talked about compassion, kindness, leaders would say, look, I'm running an organization here. I'm not running a non-profit caregiving organization. But these are hard truths now because we have ignored what people call these soft skills. And I'm a little bit rebel at times with words. I don't like the word soft skills because they are not soft. They are the hardest skills to learn. But anyway, people, when you say soft skills, people immediately kind of understand what skills you're talking about, but I think I don't use the word soft skills. So what I use is people skills. And the things that you've talked about, the hard decisions that leaders have to take sometimes, if they have the people skills, those hard decisions are not that hard, because that's again bringing something to the table is you shouldn't be able to take all these decisions by yourself. Your people are there. Do you consult with them? Do you collaborate with them? Do you delegate tasks? Because if you do those things, that takes the fear of taking hard decisions. Because you're a leader, yes, okay, but you don't really need to take hard decisions all by yourself all the time. Did you collaborate with your people? Did you ask people what is the real scenario at the grassroots level? So I've designed this masterclass after talking through, as you said, 400-500 people throughout my years. And I'm thinking what we need is not soft skills, we need people skills. Let's get down to the actual heart of the conversation, which is about people. So if you're a leader and you want to improve your other side of skills, so I know you're a leader, you're a great financier, you're a great strategist, you're a strategic leader, you're a financial leader, you are a quality control planner. you go on conventions, you go on leadership meetings, great. But let me ask you this question. Just take your hand up and say, see the 5 fingers. Do you have these 5 people skills? Communication. Now, communication is very varied. It's a huge subject. There are lots of things in communication, but the listening skills, the verbal skills, the non-verbal skills, the gestures, the eye contact. Just summarizing it. Do you collaborate with your people? And most of them will say, yeah, I do collaborate. But when I get down to the collaborate model that I've created, 90% of them don't do what really collaboration means. And I'm not talking about political collaboration. Again, there is this misunderstanding. If you're a leader, you're watching the media all the time, you're looking at how countries collaborate politically. We're not doing that in corporate organizations. Your people in your organizations are the people that you need to take care of, you need to look after. It's not a country. So you need to have a different kind of understanding, a different awareness, a different kind of relationship with your people, which takes the political collaboration to the corporate organization, people collaboration on a slightly different model. It's a different framework altogether. And then comes the third point on that people skills is delegation. Half the time, leaders don't know how to delegate. They do delegate, but not the right way. So it's unsuccessful. The person you're delegating to gets more fearful because they haven't done a right job. They haven't done the right job the right way because it's not their fault. They were not given the correct tools for delegation. And then the fourth factor on that is empowerment. If you don't empower people, they can't do their jobs, really. And the more important thing now with hybrid and remote work, people cannot do remote work without empowerment. And of course, there are boundaries, there are things you talk about in that. And the fifth people skill on that is enablement. As a leader, you talk about being of service. This is your being of service. Forget about everything. If you say to me, Rozana, in one word, tell me how leaders can improve their skills. Enablement. How do you as a leader enable your people to get their jobs done? What are the times you actually put obstacles in front of them, which is disenabling your organization? Count the times you're disenabling your people. And that's quite interesting when you say it like that and leaders then go, oh yeah, we have more disenabling factors in our organization than enabling factors. So then I say, like take back the smoking campaign. What did it say? It said something like smoking can damage your health. Didn't it, Joe? Something like that. Smoking is harmful to your health, right?
It's so long ago.
Something like that. I mean, I just remember because I've been reading the smoking campaign, the history of it, how it all happens. And even now there are some advertisements like that. So I would say to you, disabling your people is harmful to the health of your organization.
Yeah, just as you're talking there, I'm looking at, tools to help people accomplish more.
Yeah.
Also it's about understanding and those hidden opportunities that you have within to grow as well.
Yeah.
And also you said it, development and improving yourself as well, and helping to improve each part or each person in the team. What really popped up for me was delegation. And delegation is so important because it helps an organization go into its flow mode. When an organization is disjointed and there's people not happy and everything, there's that energy in the building or in the organization and you can feel it. And when you can sort of resolve all that, it goes into a flow mode. And then flow is everybody's working and happy being within the organization. So I'm just going to jump back down to delegation. You said there's people know how to delegate, but you said then there's people that delegate but don't know how to really delegate. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. Let me get back to your point on the tools that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I ask this also to the leaders. If the only tool in your box is a hammer, how will you deal with your situation? So that's one thing that I put to the table, and then they think about it. So if you only have got the hammer, you're not going to delegate properly either, because you don't have other tools. So that's one thing. Secondly, delegation is very important for succession planning. So a leader is not a leader for life. So they have to also think, this is strategic planning. Who are the successors of your organization as leaders? You can't be thinking selfishly, like, oh, when I go away, or when I leave the organization, when I retire, that's the end of that organization. That's not how a leader thinks. A leader should be thinking succession planning, how you bring up other leaders. And that's how you do through mentoring. That's how you do through delegation. Because if you don't, that's how you do through all the 5 tools. Now you've got more than a hammer, and you can do wonderful things. You can do wonderful things in your home, if you have more than a hammer, in your organization. And these tools help you to reach out to do better delegation or succession planning. If you don't grow your company doesn't grow only on profits. Your company needs to grow with people as well. So how many leaders can you see in 5 years down the line? Of course, if the people stay, but that's, like out of control. But a controlled planning, succession planning is about growing your leaders. It's about growing the potential of your people. It's about giving them opportunities to grow, and talent recognition and talent retention. If you can't retain your talent in your organization, there's no point in sending your people, oh, go on to this training course, learn this, learn that. And 6 months later, they say, okay, bye-bye, I don't want to work here. It's not they're being selfish. Really, most of the time they're not. It's not they've learned all the things they need to learn of the trade, and then they leave you. It's not that. Most of the time you'll see there's something in the people side of things. They have not managed conflict. They have not given people an opportunity to talk about. They've not given people voice. And these are the things that frustrate people in the organization. When people can't talk about their feelings openly, they lose heart. They can't be in this organization. So they will go somewhere where they may get a reduced salary, where they are given proper delegation, proper authority to do things. They have a voice. They may say, oh, no, I don't think your idea is correct, the leader might say, but at least they've had the opportunity to express their ideas. And that's a great journey for people in organizations. They're also having their journey. It's not just the leadership journey. It's also the people in the organization. They're having their little journeys as well as they go day by day in that organization. How have you made their journey nice? How can they ride the currents? How can they ride when the storm comes if they don't know how to handle the boat and the ship?
That's quite interesting, because the next question I have is for leaderships is about success. How do they deal with success, and how do they manage stress and pressure?
Yeah, and that's another side of the one-to-one coaching, which I do, is helping leaders to manage stress. And again, at the beginning, they're very reluctant. They will say, oh, I know how to manage stress, and I just go away and I do this and that. I'm saying, you don't always have to go to luxury escapes to manage stress. If you can't manage stress sitting at your table in front of your desk with the computer on, with a difficult person, if you want to call them, sitting on the other side of your table, for 2 or 3 seconds, that's the time you need to manage your stress. Because, as you say, the other person sitting on the other side of the table will say, I have a difficult leader. And the leader will say, oh, here's a person sitting in front of me. It's a difficult person. These are the things that's going through their minds. They're not talking openly. The leader is saying, oh, no, I've got him. The person is saying, oh, no, I've got this leader. So these are going through their minds. And it's at those particular moments, how does a leader manage stress? And it's a fine art. It's like, you've got, an artist who's painting a fine scene or a fine object, and they have to get their brush strokes right. They have to get the light and shade right. They have to get their oil or watercolors, whatever they're using, correct to the point to get to that beautiful picture where the public walks in or people walk in and say, look at that, that's beautiful. And that's what you need to do, sitting at the table, not thinking, oh, that's a difficult person. Oh, I need a secret luxury escape. Oh, I need this. Oh, I need that. I need to get the next Apple phone. It's not that. It's at that moment, my God, what do I do now? Like the next 3 seconds is I make or break this person, or I make and break myself.
I
So
think
that's
I
the
think
big
it's
point of stress management that you can actually learn. It's
I
a
think with
learning.
stress, I think with stress management, it's being able to stop in that moment and in that pause, being able to reflect on the situation and being able to say to yourself, everything is okay.
Yeah, and also, just take a moment and look at the other person, change your perspective. If you were that other person and if that other person was the leader, how would you approach your leader then? And how would the other person then, have some compassion? And it's that moment, the managing stress is bringing in your compassion too, bringing in your appreciation, your kindness too. And it automatically, what happens, Joe, at that moment? You're not just being kind to that person, you're being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And that managing stress is about being kind to yourself. Just say, it's okay. I might be messing this dialogue, this conversation up with this difficult person as I think it's difficult. But that person is not difficult at all. Your situation may not even be that difficult as you're thinking. It's your perspective in your head, in your mind. What are you thinking? If you bring compassion and kindness to that person and to yourself, maybe both of you together can create a synergy and both of you can help each other manage stress at that particular point. But, not to be frivolous, not to say, just bringing the compassion and kindness eradicates stress. It's an art, as I said, it's a learned thing. So when that situation arrives, you can actually open that door in your heart where that skill lives. All these skills actually can live in your brain, can live in your heart. All you have to do is, when the situation arises, call upon those skills yourself. You have to be responsible for yourself, whether you're a leader or a non-management person in that organization. The responsibility lies within yourself. But having said that, you cannot be responsible if you don't have the tools. You just cannot apply those things.
Correct. And one of the things which leaders, C-suite executives, or anyone within an organization will always feel, one is they're always worried about their confidence, and the second one is about decision making. And that decision, how do I make decisions? How do I know that I'm making the right decision when there's other people leaning on me? And that brings up a question then as well. What in the past have you got wrong to get right in your career and as you learn to be and discover more about great leadership?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think everyone should ask themselves, because life is not smooth, we know. And then when you are thinking of where you're building your career, the one thing I did right is to look at the people side of things, because previously in quality management, it was processes, it was ISO standard certification, it was just, machines. How do I get the next thing done in 3 nanoseconds, but we're not looking at this nanoseconds is going to be done by a person. And so the one thing I've got right is looking at the people side of things, and also not just the people in non-management, but people in leadership positions as well. Because don't forget, this leader in a senior management position may have another senior on top of him that he needs to manage as well. So in all of this, one thing that can create the common thing that is great that everyone can reach out is the heart. So if I can reach out to people's hearts, whether they're leaders or whether they're non-management, but because I'm working in leadership areas, I automatically want to reach out to the heart of the leaders, which then automatically reaches out to the hearts of the people.
Great. Tell me, where can someone pick up your book? And if someone wants to connect with yourself as well and maybe have a conversation within their organization, Rozana, can you give us those details?
Of course. And I always say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. If you're ready to talk to me, I can be reachable. You can get me on www.rhmleadership.com. All my details are there and some interesting posts as well. My book can be bought at the publisher's website or Amazon. If you simply put in my name, author's name, Rozana Huq, Rozanahuq, it should bring you to my book. And if you have any problems, you can reach me over just an email. Drop one line, and I will, if you leave your phone number, I will get in touch. But as I said, I am not difficult to reach out. You can go to my website. That's the best thing, www.rhmleadership.com.
And you also have a podcast being released as well.
Oh, yes, thank you. I sometimes, yes, I think if I say too much of myself, I don't like to talk too much about myself and my, books or podcasts. But thank you for mentioning that. Yes, I do have podcasts on Spotify, and it is also can be reached. I can be reached on that as well. You can hear my podcast on Spotify.
Rozana, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Joe. I'm privileged, and thank you for letting me open my heart out to you. Thank you.
And if you want to check out any of our podcasts, or if you want to connect with myself and book a session on leadership or how you can grow your business,